So we just recorded a great podcast with Laira Thomas, facilitator of connections. It was a
very interesting conversation. And like it just stopping and listening to conversations like this is just what needs to happen more. You know, when you like listen to a podcast, you're like, this is one I should listen to, because it's just like, it makes you just rethink things, you know, like it just gives you that pause on life to be like, this is what I need to be doing for myself or the future self or my husband or my partner or whoever. And it's just like, it's really, I love these conversations because they're so refreshing.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just what you can do with your partner. It's what, you know, the connections you have with your friends, with your family, with your children. It relates. It can relate to, I think everyone will find something useful from this conversation.
Yeah. And it's not just about sex.
Yeah. I think that was a good segue. Yeah. Good segue into the pod. Okay. Well, thanks so much. And we hope you guys like it. Okay. Welcome to the podcast, Laira Thomas.
Thank you.
So happy to have you.
Welcome.
So we were just saying, for your title,
Yes.
how would you we were saying intimacy expert, connections expert. How would you describe what you do?
So I like to call myself a facilitator. And I use that word specifically because I want to facilitate conversations around connecting with ourselves, connecting with our intimacy and our sexuality, you know, by ourselves, and then also with our partners or family members. And so I want to encourage people to have those conversations and facilitate those conversations yourselves.
I've never heard of this before. I mean, I knew people were like sex experts and stuff, but in intimacy. So like, I really want to understand how you even got into this. Like, how did you know that was something you wanted to do? Like, you know what I mean? I feel like that's not like necessarily a trained skill. Like,
it's
like,
a great question.
You don't go to school to be an intimacy coach. Like,
you're right. And it's a great question. And so I'm not what I don't do is sexuality in a way where you would go and see your doctor.
Right.
So somebody who, you know, if you're having issues physically around that, that's someone you're going to go see your doctor around. So what did happen was, so years and years ago, I took this incredible course. It's called Choice Theory and Reality Therapy. And it's basically the idea that you are born with specific needs and wants. And reality therapy is the tool that allows you to figure out what those are. And at the time, it was like, okay, I'm going to go and work with people. I was going to work with kids. I had a plan. I was in a totally different career. And
what was it? If you
I was in advertising.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Yeah.
And then I had a second baby and was like, I'm out of advertising. And my girlfriend was like, please come and work with me. She owned a spa. And I was like, oh, okay. And like, we are like in love with each other. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. And then got distracted by sort of being with her and kind of put it on the back burner. And then had another baby and kind of COVID hit. And I was like, I'm done with all of this.
Yeah.
And decided to like just change it all up. So I was like, I have the ability to do this work. I have a certification and I want to change things up. So I literally quit my job, went back to school to get my BA in psychology, moved my entire family to Costa Rica and just started practicing. And that's that
is a crazy,
it's a very long,
that is a crazy pivot.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought I was making changes.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, listen, COVID forced a lot of people to really reevaluate what they were doing and where they were living.
I know, but you hear about that and then to think about, wow, that's so like, I know a lot of people got up and, you know, but that's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted change. I knew I wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
I knew that this was something I always wanted to do. I do know myself well and sort of, I guess, had talked myself out of it for so long. There was like this negative belief in my head that was like, well, maybe you're not going to be good at it, or maybe you can't do it, or whatever that was. And I kind of was like, screw it. Like, why can't I do that? I'm really good at it. I love doing it. I have really wonderful, beautiful connections with people through the spa. I also was a fitness instructor while I was at the spa. So, you know, working with a lot of women, working with a lot of people in intimate moments, that I thought I should be doing this more and I should be doing it professionally.
Like, that's amazing.
Okay, sorry, you would have these moments where you'd be teaching a class and you were like just really connecting with people. Yeah. And you're like, I connect more than most.
Yeah.
Like, is that kind of what you felt?
Yeah,
like?
I know, absolutely.
When
like,
you say, sorry, can you also, because you're saying connecting.
Yeah. Yes.
When you say connecting, do you mean like people are like talking to you after class and are like, Laira, I've got to tell you my problems. Like, I want to talk to you on a deeper, so that's what you mean by connection. It's talking to people on a deeper level and having this relationship with them that goes beyond just the superficial.
Yeah. And I think, yes. And I think also, there's certain people who you just know who they are. Like you're around them and you feel good about yourself when you're with them. And then there's other people who you just like, or no, you like pass them by. They don't have that vibe. And I think I like people, and people would come to me after class and talk to me about whatever was happening in their lives. And while I was teaching or while I was at the spa, you're in intimate positions and intimate moments, and you talk to people, and people let their guard down in both of those places. And I just developed this, I was doing it, and I was doing it for my friends, and a lot of, it wasn't just the connections. There was a lot of, I do feel comfortable with my sexuality. I do feel comfortable talking about it, expressing what I need and how I want things and what I want. And so I would kind of like play with my friends with that. I was like, are you doing this? And you should be doing that. And I'm challenging you to do this,
Let's get into that.
I love
honestly, no, but like a little PG, because let's just consider everyone needs to remember that Lauren's partner is my brother.
Yes.
So, I mean, and listen, my family is very, but like,
your family is very open. Well, and maybe because there's different connections, which we were talking about before we went live, which is obviously there's connections with your partners, connections with your family, connections with your friends, with your kids. And everything is important, but maybe we can, like the first connection we can talk about, because you just said you've been married for 22 years.
Yeah.
And
and she what did you say? I've been married for 22 years, and do you remember?
Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
It's fucking great.
Like I've actually never heard a person.
I thought you were gonna say it's fucking awesome.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, it's
like, have you ever heard anyone say that?
He's amazing. I should say that. My husband is, and anyone who knows my husband will agree. There's just good people in the world.
Yeah.
He's one of them.
Right.
And as I said, when you're around certain people, you feel a certain way about yourself, right? I don't believe people make you feel a certain way. I think you feel a certain way about yourself. And he's one of those people who allowed me to be the most authentic version of myself. And so because of that, at such a young age, I was allowed to explore who I was. And
you felt comfortable.
Yeah. And so that, I'm not saying like we, obviously been married 22 years. We have 3 kids. Like, not every day is like roses. Having said that, it's pretty fantastic and I like it.
So talk to us. I mean, that is incredible. Yeah. So talk to us because, I've been married to Lanny's brother for like over 15 years. And I think a lot of people who are listening to this, they are parents. They've probably been with their partner for a while. And, things just become at this place where your partner is not the priority, right? Your kids become the priority and your relationship becomes secondary. Your life becomes busy. You become physically and mentally exhausted. So to think about, your partner at the end of the day or whenever and how you're going to keep that connection, I think that's so hard for so many parents, myself included. It's like how you keep the spark alive, how you prioritize the relationship over, or not over, but
I'm going to interrupt you because I actually think that's a great line. I think that you do. You somewhere down deep, you have to remember that you started here and you're literally going to end here. This partner is where you started and it's where you end. So my theory was like, when you're old and you can barely talk and you can barely see, are you going to be happy sitting beside that person in the end? Like, is that person going to be where you feel your best?
Ooh,
like, and
I'm going to feel the morrow.
It's a tricky thing to ask. So I was 24 when I got married, right? So a 24-year-old like may not feel the same way at 26 and 35 and 57. So it's a hard question to ask. But if you're getting into a lifelong relationship because the money's good, because your family really likes him, because he has a good job, because of all these things that are over here, is that going to last you for hopefully ever, right? And can you say that you're going to make that person your priority? You're going to make that relationship your priority, that you will put your children aside for a minute, that you're going to take that vacation. You're going to leave your kid in order to take 5 minutes with your partner. Like, are you able to do that? Like, how do you become comfortable doing that?
Right.
And it's something you have to practice. It's something you have to nurture.
And there's also stigma. Like there's stigma around that in society. Like it's not even just that. Like there is a reason that women intuitively feel guilty when they're leaving their children at any moment. Like there's the stuff at the beginning with the breastfeeding and all that kind of stuff. But in life, like, you know, in a lot of situations, it's not the same always for both parents. And I'm not trying to be whatever, but there is that feeling. And
some
it's
people
innate,
don't have the luxury too. Like I want to say that, like you can't, like we were young. And so I had 2 sets of grandparents who were like we could leave our kids with them. They were all over it. Right. And so that was easy.
It was allowed you to do that way. Yeah.
But I mean, even I remember teaching a class and I would say to the girls, okay, girls, let's go, whatever. I'm going on a girls' weekend, whatever. And I would have, no joke, a dozen women come up to me afterwards and say, well, how are you going on a girls' weekend? Who are you leaving your kids with? Which to me was absurd. I was like, well, they have a father, right? Like, what do you mean by that? And I have parents. Like, well, your husband's going to look after them? I'm like, yeah, he's the dad. Yeah, he is. So you have to just, you have to
find the balance and let go.
Make it the thing.
Yeah, you have to make it the priority. Well, and I think what was really great too about what you said was, Dahlia actually just sent me a podcast with Dr. Becky and Esther Perel. And
Esther Perel is like
and I highly recommend everyone listen to it because it was an incredible podcast. And one of the things she said was exactly what you said, Laira, which was, does this relationship matter?
Right.
Between you and your partner?
Yeah.
Like the most important question is, does it matter and why does it matter?
Right.
Above everything. And you have to think again about like why you fell in love with this person. What were the reasons? Like what is this person, you know, what do they mean to you? And I think the other thing that she said that was so interesting was that she said, you know, eroticism and kind of intimacy, which is spontaneous and adventurous and exciting, goes against everything that parenting is, which is structure and scheduling. And, you know, it's sort of like your kids offer that adventure and you plan for them and you do for them. And it's like, you know, new activities and this and that. And, you know, all that energy goes to that versus, you know, figuring out this excitement and what you can do in your relationship. And I just thought that was such an interesting comparison. But to your point, it doesn't matter. It's like you have to take the time and put in that energy, whatever it may look like and whatever you are capable of doing with your partner.
Well, she's, first of all,
she's brilliant.
Amazing.
Well, they're both brilliant.
And I love,
I literally signed up for, I was going to say class pass, lol. No, for
like a boot camp with her?
No, her masterclass.
Her master. I know I signed up for masterclass specifically for hers because when I was going through everything, I'm like, I would fall asleep to her voice because her voice is like the most. So yeah,
and here's a great example.
She's coming to Toronto soon too. We should.
Let's go.
I know.
Really?
Let's all go.
Oh, I would love to do that. So one of the things. So this is a great thing. So like great entry into something awesome. So she has this new game that she put out. Okay,
I saw that.
I love Indigo hasn't had them for a while, but Indigo for a while had these amazing like games and things and activities. So here's an example of like, I have. I don't know, probably 15 years old, this little like sticky pad, and it has these little stickies on them that's like, oh, you're so good looking, or whatever it's cute little sexy little things. And I literally will like stick it on the mirror or like stick it in my husband's drawer.
Your kids see it. They're like, wait, I'm sexy.
Like, and it's not gross and like inappropriate. It's cute, right? And they're like, oh, mom, you know, but I put them around and he loves them. It's like little things. Or I have this book. I love this book. I've mentioned it before, where once in a blue moon, we'll take like 5 minutes and I'll just be like, oh, come into the bedroom and we'll answer a couple questions. Like, what's your favorite thing about me? Or what did you find hilarious?
Wait, you'll be like, hold on. Sorry. I'm just about to clean a shitty diaper, but let me do the diaper. And jump in here for a second.
No, I make it happen. My husband's like busy and he's like, I'm not coming. I'm like, you're coming. Come on, 5 minutes. Or like,
wait, you sit him on the bed and they're like, okay, here's just a few quick questions.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're writing this down or you're just listening?
We write it down and then he writes it down. But here's what's happened. Okay, he married me, right?
So he knows what he's getting into. Like, could you even imagine?
I can't imagine.
He rolls his eyes and he's just like, oh, okay. But then what ends up happening is after the first time, he was like, he loved it.
Can you give an example of the questions?
Yeah, they could be anything from like,
do you want to F me right now?
Yes. What did you know? It's not. But it's like, what did you notice about me on our first date? Or what would you want to tell the kids that you like the most about me? Or it's like all these like really, some of them are funny. Some of them are actually very intimate. Some of them, whatever it is. Right. And I mean, there's like thousands of questions. We probably filled out 20. I don't care. Even if we just do 1 or 10 or 5. And another thing you said that I thought was really interesting, and I want to say it before I forget it, is scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to schedule your nails. You're going to schedule a play date. You're going to schedule all of these things. How about you say, like, what are you doing on Sunday at 2:00? I've got a play date. He's there. She's there. Everything's going on. We're going to have sex. Right? So if you think about that, it's like, really, I don't know. But at the same time,
feel that intimate to plan this 4 days out.
It does, because you'll be fine.
Be wet?
'Cause guess what? You're gonna send a text at 1:54, and you're gonna be
it's like dating all over again. That's what you're doing.
It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
Because we have a date at 2:00, right? And it's like, and I do. I actually sent a text message the other day and said, I need some help upstairs. And my husband's like, I'm so busy. And I was like, oh, you will be busy.
Yeah.
And then he knew what I was talking about. And
he's
he
like,
came
I'm there.
upstairs.
Yeah.
Right. And he was like, it was not the timing for him in any way. He was extremely busy and whatever. But it doesn't matter. I mean, come on.
When are you not busy?
Like,
it's just making a point of putting those in and setting up the time, whether it's
for some
chatting.
people. For some people, that you had a very good point. Is that going to stimulate you? I mean, you're like 2:00 on a Sunday, really, like you kind of want the this and you want the that.
Right.
Or not when you have 4 children and you have a life and you have parents, you're taking care of responsibilities, friendships, like really, like it's not, you know.
But I think the point is though, like you seem to be obviously so comfortable with yourself, so comfortable with your feelings. Not everyone, or the hope is people get more comfortable, but not everyone's there. So like certain characters are just not going to do that because
they're
not you. So, but there's different ways that people know, like it's like speaking people's love languages, right?
Yeah.
Like
That's right.
looking at your partner, looking at someone and saying, you know, I can imagine what would you do? What would make this person happy in this moment or why, right? Like those original, and then knowing them well enough or trying to know them well enough to do that action or to do the thing that feels right for you guys, right? So with you, it's putting cute little sticky notes. For you with Benji, who that would obviously maybe work with. I don't know. I feel weird even thinking about
No, but I think for that, even not.
But doing things like, I feel like.
But it doesn't even have to be sexual. Like I think even sometimes we'll walk to Starbucks alone
exactly
together.
what I was just gonna say.
We're just like, oh my God, we're like, we haven't walked to get a coffee.
It's exactly. So sweet that the little things that would mean something for you guys. It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be sexual.
Or
it doesn't. No.
Well, yeah, but it's just connecting with the person.
Well, and that's when those connections fall by the wayside. And I think, again, this was something we touched on before we started recording, which was a big thing, which is putting your relationship before your children. Yes. So do you want to talk a bit about that? Because I think that's going back to your mom guilt, going back to the times right now. Like I think that is a huge thing for a lot of parents out there.
And before we get into that, we're lucky enough today on our podcast to have our first.
Okay. So going back to prioritizing this idea of prioritizing your relationship and putting that first over your children. Let's talk about that because I think that's going to be a big bond for a lot of parents.
That was really interesting. You said mom guilt, which I think is across the board, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different variations of what we're living, right? Right now, you're kind of diving into being a single mom, and you're, you know, my kids are getting older, and you know, there's a lot of not everybody's in the same boat in the way that they are living and parenting,
right?
And I do think that it's the most used, and I don't care because I love it. But you know, when they say in the airport about how you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you put on your kids. So that's kind of like my life motto for myself and for my husband. The truth is my kids are only as good as the relationship that they're watching and that they're involved in, right? So there's so many examples. If your children are watching a relationship that you're sticking it out for the kids, yet they can see that you're clearly unhappy and miserable, is that working out? If your children are watching, like my parents have been married for 50 plus years. I've watched them fight for it, right? They have worked and fight for it through the years. And so there's something about that really taught me that relationship was a priority. That relationship was important, and it hasn't been perfect. And so because I feel so comfortable with my husband, I wanted to make sure that I did the same thing. And I had said before we started that my kids know that, right? Of course, I love them and I made them and they weren't accidents. And my husband is my priority because when they leave and they don't care about me and they have their own families, like I still have this partnership that I have to keep healthy and alive. And so I nurture that a lot. And while that's safe and while I feel good in that, I then am able to take better care of my family.
Well, they're like mutually exclusive. No, the opposite. Is that mean they're
not mutually exclusive. You can put your husband first and you can still prioritize your children. And that doesn't mean that your kids
are any less loved or taken care of. Or
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's your point when you're 90 or when you're 60 or whenever it is, when they leave your house, that you actually look across the room and are like, we have something to talk about beyond our children, beyond the scheduling. Right. It's like we have each other and we're excited about the next phase.
Okay. So like what's so interesting about it, either reconnecting sparks or looking for partners or for people that are, new in relationships, what would you say are like really good things? Cause like, I think this is like all about it, right? You want to know when you're meeting someone or if you're in, you're now trying to, hopefully you're in for the right reasons and you're trying to improve upon it. But like, what are these things that are good? Not like red flags, but green thumbs up that like, yes, these connections are real. This is like, not because so much stuff too, as you grow, things change and that's just life.
Yes.
But you really try to get to the nitty gritty of getting to know someone before you take a leap in and you do all those big life decisions with. And sometimes I feel like you understand things and sometimes you don't, but it would be helpful to know like from a connection master, like what are those like key things that like would say, and I know you mentioned that at the beginning, the superficial type stuff.
That's what I was just going to say.
That you think, well, not even think that we're ingrained to believe is important. Like,
or even just the spark. Like, what if, like when there's so much chemistry and then after all that chemistry, it's like, where do you...
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I was just going to say, like I said at the beginning, so I wish that people, when they got involved to begin with, would think about these kind of things, right? That
people don't critically think.
They don't, and they didn't
so many
back
reasons.
then.
Right.
I mean, back in the day, when our grandparents are back, like this is what you did, and this is what you. And then there was like the rebellion was like, oh, it's for love, oh, it's for sex. Like it evolved over time, and now it's like we know so much, and like we have so many choices. And I said something that I really stand by. The people in your life, you should feel your best when you're with people. And this is connections across the board, right? You can't choose your family. They're there.
Yeah.
You can choose how much time you spend with them.
Those connections will be up and down because
like how much time you spend with them for sure.
Yeah.
But your friendships, your partnerships, your new partnerships, all of this, you going into them, you want to think like, how do I feel being around this person?
Right.
I feel comfortable with myself. I feel good about myself. I feel like I can say anything, like anything that comes to mind, I can share.
Yeah.
I feel interesting. I feel interested. I'm going to try new things. Like I hate cucumbers, but this guy says they're amazing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try cucumbers. It's like, why the fuck not?
Right.
Like, it's like something as simple as that. It's just going for it because you feel so good and safe.
Yeah.
And safe.
Safe is very important, right?
So safe that like, if you decided to spit that cucumber out into a napkin, that person you're with would laugh and think you're cute.
And not judge you.
And not judge you.
And
that for sure was another thing about reason number 750 that I love my husband. All the things that every other person hated about me or made me feel, or I felt bad about myself because of, he thought was cute and endearing. And like, I was able to really like be myself. And that's how I knew, although I was young, I knew like you would be really stupid to let this person go.
Right.
Right. I'm at my best with this person and I can be my best with this person. And I think that's individual. I don't think there's a rule book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of friends too, right?
Oh,
it's like you see, to your point, it's like which of your friends kind of has that energy where you feel like you're not being judged.
Yeah.
You're being fully supported. When something good happens to you, they're so happy for you. Your kids are their kids and vice versa. And I think as you get older, it's like you see that versus it's like, when you're our kids' ages, it's like you're just friends with anyone who will talk to you. It's like,
and it's going to change.
For sure.
And that's really interesting too. And I'm sure you're finding this right now in your situation. It's like, it's interesting where people are at and how people are responding and relating to you. And a lot of times, especially when we get to our age, history plays such a large part in our relationships. And it's like we hold on to these relationships because of the history, when in fact, they aren't bringing anything to the table, right? And that's when it's like, And it's happened to me. And it's like, it sucks because this history was so long. But at the same time, when it's over and it's done, you realize, I don't even miss this person. They brought nothing to the table. It actually wasn't the worst thing that ever happened, that this relationship is over.
And all trimming the fat, baby.
Yeah, right?
You gotta trim that fat off.
It really is.
You don't even know the fat's there until you realize that it needs to be gone.
Yeah. And some people deserve, like, again, that
good trimming.
But also some people deserve you to say out loud, like, this is not working for me. I feel this way.
Oh my God,
this.
Could you ever do that? That is like, and I'm a confrontational person in a way, not to be like, there are certain things with like feelings and emotions that are just like, and we really do pride ourselves on being honest. And it's just really hard to say that to someone. Like, imagine there was a friend group and you wanted to nix one person in your friend group and you're just like honest with that person. You're like, listen, like, this is not working for me anymore. Like, I rather just like ghost the text, slowly pull away, be low key. Like, but there's something so amazing and honest about being honest with your feelings. And
well, there's a way to do it. I mean, I even had a conversation yesterday with a friend who I felt like there was something going on. And I said, like, I mean, I'm not one to not have this conversation. So I feel like maybe you were irritated with me when this happened and I was feeling like this. And I think when you present it in a way where it's like they're I statements, like I feel this way and I was thinking this when this happened, instead of like you.
Exactly.
It feels less confrontational.
They're not feeling as defensive and you can kind of let it off your chest about what you think. And then, of course, there are, for sure, certain people who it will make zero difference. You can have a million conversations and say whatever you want to this person.
Like,
what
deaf ears.
Right. Let it go. Yeah, for sure.
But I think one of those relationships that's not going to be an intimate one.
Yeah.
Yes. You're not getting 100%. Close with that person. But I do think that's really important, is like how to cut those friendships out that aren't serving you. And you are in such an interesting place in your life where, you know, it's like you're really evolving. You know, you're not in the same position you were a few months ago.
Yeah.
And the kind of support you need and the kind of friendships you need are different than what you needed a few months ago.
Yeah. I would give it some time though. I will say that, and I don't know your friend and I don't want to defend anybody. There are some people who just don't even know how to handle it. They don't know what to do, what to say.
You're talking about dropping friends. Yeah, no, and there's no one, guys, there's no one, all my friends.
No. But you know what I mean? Like in general,
I wasn't even giving a specific example.
Just in general with people, like when situations happen, like sometimes people don't even know, like, how am I supposed to react to this? How am I supposed to say things? Or should I give it time? Or it's the same thing with your partner. Like if a situation happens and you're really angry, you know, there's a theory where it says like, don't go to bed angry, right? Well, actually the truth is that when you're in a dysregulated place, you cannot have a conversation with somebody because like scientifically their brains are not hearing what it is that you're saying. So even an example with your children, right? If your kids are having an absolute mental breakdown, trying to have a conversation with them about how it's this or that or whatever it is, that you cannot. You have to let them become regulated and then go in and do whatever business you need to do. And so the same thing with your partners, the same thing like with across the board with people, like just understanding when is the right time to have these conversations and how to put it out there is what you're going to get from it, you know?
Yeah. Listen, I think it all requires work, right? It's like friendships take time, relationships take time. I don't think anything, it's just like comes easily. And I think for a lot of women too, it's like when you see couples, you have no idea. You know, I think there's a big assumption too. And listen, social media plays a huge part in this, is that everyone's got their shit together. And that is so not true. And it's like, the more I talk to my friends, it's like everyone is going through something and probably through something very similar to what you are going through, you know, whether it's, you know, their intimacy with their husbands or their partners, or, you know, there's something wrong with their friend group that's getting them down, or issues at work. It's like, and those are major connections too, right? You know, we are in such a unique position at, you know, our own connection.
Wildly connected.
We are family. We work together, you know,
we are in a web of connections.
We are in a web of connections that also, listen, it requires a lot of work and a lot of conversations and sometimes hard conversations. So I think that, you know, people also have to understand that, you know, whatever they're going through or issues with their own sort of personal relationships, it's, you know, everyone else is probably going through something very hard and very similar.
And being able to, I think that's a great entry into connecting to yourself, right? That's probably one of the most important connections there.
I want you to get into this because when you were like putting your relationship first, I'm like, okay, so but I honestly, truthfully feel you have to put yourself first to be happy in your relationship, right? Like you have to, like you felt so good. You felt so comfortable, and that can happen together. But, you know, there's a synergy there, but you had to feel good enough to put that out there in front of him. You had to feel like your best version,
actually,
really.
For me, the answer is no, I wasn't, which is interesting. And anyone who knows me would be like, what?
Oh,
they would
you
be
were
like shocked. They would be, there was no social media back then, but they'd be like, what? That's so not you. But the truth is, no, I mean, I was struggling. I wasn't, but I felt so okay and safe
with him
in this place that this is how I learned. I mean, as I said, I was 22 when I met him, 24 when I got married. So I learned and grew while I was with this person.
So it was really with him then.
Yes.
That you became, he really helped you to become so confident in yourself.
Just by being a supportive person. It was like,
but that's incredible how someone can do that. Like someone's impact, and it can go so many different ways, but that is such a beautiful way that it can go. Someone like is so supportive and so encouraging and loves you so much that it literally just makes you the best version of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, like, and I know that I'm lucky, and I know it doesn't happen a lot. And
but it could more if people just were looking and trying to do the right things, I guess.
And paying attention to, you know, the good seeds.
Like the divorce rates are pathetic.
Yeah,
it is. Like it's pathetic that's what the society we're living in. Everyone's just okay with this model in life then.
Well, I think 50%
a lot of these aren't working, then why is everyone still, what is going wrong? Is my, like, that's not a great stat.
To me, it's the start. I have to say it's the start. It's what I said at the beginning. And I feel
the
like.
Start of what?
The start of the relationship. Why are you in that relationship to begin with?
Right.
Like, really? Like, why are you in this relationship?
Well, I think it's because it's society. There's so much with society.
Well, and listen, things have also changed.
Age, there's babies, there's money. There's just too many external factors that play too many important parts, not even necessarily to those people, to you, it's to other people. So that's why putting yourself first.
Social media.
So how do you put yourself first? Let's go.
Okay.
Like, so if you are not, like, again, you were in a unique situation where you met someone young who was incredible, who helped you feel amazing about yourself. So
it's not typical to feel like
that's what I'm saying. Like, so if you're not in that situation, you know, how are you putting yourself first and making kind of that connection with yourself?
Well, I think one of the things that is great about the position we're in, like in 2023, is that people are paying more attention. So, you know, I'm not into the celery juice fad and all of that, but like, you know, just in the idea of people, you know, journaling or people paying attention and sort of focusing on what works for you and what doesn't. So when I went, you know, I was talking about this choice theory about basic needs or love languages or figuring out, okay, what are those for yourself? What do you need in life to feel secure, comfortable, happy, stimulated, you know, all of those feelings and thoughts that go through your head. And you can do that by making lists, you know, what works for me, what doesn't work for me, how, when this situation comes up, how am I feeling? How can I change that? You know, if this isn't working for me, what can I do that's different that will make me feel that way? And I think that's the same thing with intimacy or with, you know, with the whole conversation around sex too, is that I am going to send a text message to my husband saying, come upstairs. A good 50% of people are not going to do that. But would you feel comfortable saying, I'd like to go for a walk to grab coffee and maybe holding hands? To somebody, that's a massive step. If you are watching TV, where do you sit? Like, is one person sitting over here and one person sitting on the couch?
Get on his
I just tried to get closer. I just tried to get closer to Lanny. She told me to back off.
Back up.
That was like not a good connection.
Right? You know what? Okay. We've talked about this a lot. I'm in a very difficult position, guys. I fidget a lot. I'm physically just because of the way the
placement.
I'm literally the tripod. I'm like, and I'm the worst with my mic, so I'm just doing my best.
Yeah,
but those are little things for each person is different, right? I think like sitting a little bit closer, and you mentioned love languages too. It's not always everybody's love language to be physical. So accepting that about people, like
it's that for him, but maybe not that for her, and vice versa.
So, some people it's the same, some people it's different, recognizing what that would be, paying attention to like, that's interesting. They really like, you know, I always said that my husband's love language was touch and so is mine. So it's so easy because we're so like physically connected all the time. And my girlfriend said to me, like literally like a couple weeks ago, she was like, I actually think he's like an acts of service. That's his. And I was like, oh my God. yeah, every time he does something, he's like, I did this today. I did that today. I think he might be an acts of service. I just figured this out. Well, I did. She just figured that out. Like, that's amazing. And so just paying attention to it and then like letting them do that. And when they do say, hey, I took out the garbage and I went grocery shopping today, instead of being irritated that they bought the wrong milk, which I do, you know, you can be like, amazing, thank you. Because to them, that's how they're showing you how much they love you.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I think that's a big thing for parents too, is like, because you do get in this weird grind of like just getting angry at all the things they're not doing. And so for sure to be like, oh my, like when my husband packs the kids' bags and they're all at the front, I'm like, I'm sending you that text later.
He can do that.
You're getting that text message.
He can do that.
Well,
Good
he
job,
knows.
G.
I think he started to know. And I think it's actually taking the time to be like, thank you for doing that.
Yes.
Like, and
just
showing that appreciation
versus baby.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about rewards. It's you're being positive.
And it's the little things.
But also to get there, the problem is it's because you care and he cares. Right. That's the whole point too. Yes, you have to slow down and show
how happy he is when I'm like, thank you so much for
so you're
doing
taking
that.
The time
it
to
was a small
understand
fucking thing.
Right.
Honestly, it's not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal because he never does it.
But I think that's a really good example, right? That's like knowing you and him, that you figured out something. He's getting the feel good out of it and he's helping you
and
out.
It sets us up for the day where it's like, you know what? Maybe later. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, well,
maybe that door's getting
for you. You can do it because you're in a good space, right? So, as an example of like, let's say you're in a space where you're not in a good space, and so like you might think like, oh, we put the bags there. Well, that was nice, but really you're like, rah, rah, rah. Like there's so many other negativity. There's so many other negative things going through your head. It's like, okay, you have to pep talk yourself, right?
Right.
You would be like, thanks, babe. Nice bags, right? And some other people are not. So then you're like, okay, just write it in a text. Just be like, thanks for the help this morning, right?
Yeah.
Now, that may change the entire dynamic of the day or the situation. And then all of a sudden, what was maybe not so awesome gets warmer and warmer and warmer.
Right. There's less agitation and animosity.
There's small things. Like for me, in my opinion, if you're going to end a relationship, which may be inevitable, you have to work really hard before you say 100% I'm out, right? And I think when you talked about the divorce rates, part of it is the start of the relationship.
Yeah.
And I think another part of it is how easy it is for people to just be like, meh, we're done, you know?
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of people who that's not the case. They do. They do whatever they can do. And, you know, we were just talking about our mutual friend who is a beautiful example of that. And there's some people who don't. Some people who are just like, we're done. You know, like some relationships aren't meant to be. They weren't meant to be to begin with, and they're not meant to be now. And so there's lots of people who live their lives happily and go on to second relationships. I know, I was going to say half my friends, which I actually think is true, who are now on to second relationships, living their best life, like their best life. Their first relationship should never have been to begin with. They made their babies, and so that was really great.
Right.
But their second relationships are...
Or that first relationship informed their second relationship. And they're now, because of that, in a place where they know what works and they know what didn't. Right. And it was like, without that first relationship, they wouldn't have known sort of really themselves and what they wanted out of something.
And we touched on this too. How are you supposed to know at 29 what's going to then work for you at 39? Like, well, you know, change.
No, but totally. But to start, to your point, asking those types of questions, right? Like asking, really thinking about what would make you happy down the road, or not just in the moment, you know, those things, your core values. Like there isn't a reason why you shouldn't be. If you're going to consider getting married to the person and doing all those things, those should be critical thoughts that are like really, you know, but the reality is not everyone cares about the intimacy. Some people care about the money. Some people care about the status. So like this
at that
is only
time, that's what's their
or
priority.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Like some people don't give a fuck about being or like having these deep. Some people or maybe they do. They'll just never want that for themselves or get there for whatever reason. Like I always think people are happiest when they're like looking for their self-worth and like, you know, they're happy there.
Yeah.
But some people are just not ever going to get that because they're prioritizing different things.
And we don't know what goes on inside other people's minds about where they want to go. So to, you know, judge people on their choices, like I'm not about that either, right? Like I for me, I like what I do is is try to facilitate the conversations that people have with themselves and with their partners to figure out how to get the best from what's happening here and now, right? And asking themselves the questions and talking about how they were raised and talking about what is working for them. And if it's not working, what you can do to change that, right?
Well, and how much family and how you were raised and those connections probably play such a big part in how you are
in a
towards your spouse, towards your kids.
It's kind of like fertility. Like there has to be so many, I think, things working in your favor for it to be like a healthy, successful, long-term relationship. And in certain ways, I mean, there's a lot of self-worth you can do, but just the way that people are, and because families are so ingrained in who you become, right? And that can either
it can work against you. Like there's obviously generational trauma that like affects how you parent, how you are, you know, how you see your parents. If they don't have a healthy relationship, it's like, are you going to break that cycle or are you not? How you were parented, are you parenting the same?
It's deep-rooted for sure. And I think, I mean, I've talked about this before. Like if it wasn't modeled to you as a child, how are you supposed to recognize what that looks like? Right? Like it's a very
all you know.
It's all you know.
And that's why every family is such an individual.
Yeah.
Like, so when you blend families for whatever reasons, marriage, this or that, like blended family, like,
and personalities too are different. Like what people, you know, I mean, you guys understand because you have kids, but they're all different human beings.
Yeah, and you're doing the
They're
same.
raised in the same home, but they are all parented differently, which I think is really interesting if you think about it, because your first was your firstborn and you don't know any differently and you're learning and you're growing. And then you have your middle and you're like, okay, I've already done this. And this is now you're a new parent parenting this kid. And then I have 3. You have 3? Yeah. Right. And you have 4?
I have 4, yeah.
So then now you've got the third, and now you're okay. Well, now you've got this baby. Now I've all handed this, and now you're a new parent parenting this kid. So you know, there's a lot of, so you're taking what you know and what was modeled to you, and at the same time, you're doing it differently each time based on where you're at, right? And
Totally.
And then all of a sudden you're a partner. So now you're a partner in different stages of your life, right? So how are you a partner as a newlywed? How are you a partner as a new parent? How are you a partner as somebody who's now changing careers? And like, it's always evolving. And so to learn about yourself each time, to figure out what works for you, to be able to vocalize that. And you can't always get everything from your partner too. Like, I just want to say that, your friendships are also really important. So
I've had my friendships through what I've been through over the, like, it's really, you know, it's incredible. It's incredible with the close people. And I didn't realize how intimate those friendships were.
Yeah.
Honestly, like really, like in so many ways, it's just pretty incredible. Like you prioritize your relationship sometimes, or working on your relationship, and friendships. Like I have a lot of friends and I love my friends, and I'm kind of like you. Like I love being around people and I love making people feel good. So I have a lot of different types of friends, and it brings me so much joy being with them. Like it's one of my biggest joys in life is like hanging with my friends. You have a family and you have 3 kids and you have a relationship. Like, you know, it's like really hard. And then this happened to me and I'm like, holy shit, all my friends with also all the same priorities I once had are now like prioritizing me. And like just you know, like it was just really, really, really special to see how intimate and how much people, cared about me, because for intimacy, you don't think of friendships first and foremost.
That's
always
right.
At all. You always go to your relationship.
Well,
your
intimacy is not about sex, right? That's the thing.
But people equate it. There's a correlation
for sure.
there.
So when I started and I was on Instagram and starting to like put myself out there, which like I'm very friendly and comfortable, but like I don't love doing that. Everyone's like, oh, she's a sex coach. Oh, she's sex this, sex that. I was like, you guys need to grow the fuck up. Like I'm talking about way more than just having sex. Like intimacy is not about
Should
sex.
we though talk about
I was going to say, should we get into...
didn't even talk about sex. Okay, so you've been in your relationship for 22 years.
Yeah.
How can I just give you some questions?
Yeah.
How often a week do you have sex?
Ooh.
Is that a bad question?
No, it's not a bad question. And it's different for everybody, but I'm definitely going to say at least like 3 times a week, 4.
And has this always, it's been pretty steady?
Yes, but yes. And it changes because, you know, there's like the weeks of the this or the weeks of the that, or then you do this.
Of course. But on the drag, you're doing
regularly
3 to 4.
I'm pretty happy with like 3 or 4.
Okay, so let's just talk about this for 1 second, because I do think this is a big thing for a lot of people who've been in relationships for a long time. Is there like a healthy amount that a couple should be having sex in a week?
I think if you can manage to have sex once a week, you're doing good. And people also like, the thing is that not everybody needs to have sex. Not everybody.
Right.
So the intimacy, the touching, the sitting close, the connections, that is also enough for a lot of people. So
or like making out even.
There are couples who are not physically, sexually intimate with each other. And that is not a negative or a problem. It's not their thing. They don't have a high libido. They don't have, and that's okay. And those are the kind of things you have to talk about.
Right.
As long as,
if you don't have that conversation at the beginning of your relationship and you're 10 years down the line and all of a sudden they're like, what's happening and why aren't I getting it? Like, well, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You're both assholes. Why did you not talk about this? Right. So when you ask that question, it's a very tricky question, right? So because not everybody needs that.
And also your life ebbs and flows. Right. Like, and if you have a newborn or whatever it is, it's like you're not having sex twice a week.
It's not for it's not
it's
a
bad good first question. Yeah.
Because I think that you actually brought up then a conversation, which is really important to have, which is that is not for everybody. Right. I mean, it's for me and that's like what I need in my relationship, which I talked about and continue to talk about and continue to bring up. And the truth is, it's probably me more than it is him being like, let's have sex. And he's like, like, and thankfully he, he's like,
it's enough already.
And then I'm always like, I'd like you to discuss this with your friends. Just discuss this with your friends and find out, are they getting wives begging them for sex? Please.
Yeah. Like
he's definitely in a unique position. Yeah.
He should be counting his blessings.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also think that is a big thing on social media where it's like, I've just had a baby and my husband wants to have sex again. And it like is this huge thing where it's like, why can't it be flipped? And why can't the woman be the one that's like, let's go?
And I think it has to be worked on and practiced just like the connections do. So I think I'd posted something about this. It was really upsetting there. Somebody was talking about how these ladies, anyway, I love them. But one of the things they were doing was talking about how they avoid having sex.
I was literally referring, I know what you're referring to. I'm referring to the same account.
They avoid having sex.
Yeah, it really upset me.
But why do they avoid having sex?
They talk about how it's like, my husband asked for sex again. And it's like,
and then it's like, and I brought the kids into bed and like made them like the pillow barrier. And I did this and I did that. And I just sort of think like, I know that they're being funny and I know it's sort of their shtick and it's okay, but it's also not okay because I feel like
that's encouraging.
It's encouraging the disconnect that's happening. Or is there more that's happening if it's not about sex and that's okay? What's happening that you are practicing to keep connected and intimate with your partner, right?
Right.
So it's a tricky thing.
And when you have, it's like also like you want to be careful because people really eat that shit up too, right?
That's right.
And you're looking at that. It's just playing on the disconnection.
That's
so then what are some things? Okay, it's like
I didn't want to take away from your sex talk. Go ahead.
No,
go
but
back.
let's get into some specific things. Yeah. Like I want to, you want to keep things spicy. You want to, maybe you are having sex once or twice a week, but maybe you want to bring it up a notch and make things a little spicier. Like,
okay, I have two fun things.
Okay, let's
do fun. These are my tricks. And I've actually like made some of my friends do this and it's been so fun. And she's like, it's never going to work. And it worked. Okay.
Oof.
So here's one. When you're at a restaurant, I don't know where you guys sit at the table. So sometimes you sit side by side. Sometimes you sit across from each other. Okay. So try like, you just take your shoe off and you just kind of like put your foot between their legs under the table. Right. And you just sort of leave it there. So I actually made my girlfriend do this, this is not her thing. It's like, I am not doing that. I'm like, you are doing it. You are doing it. I mean, we'd had a lot of wine, but I was like, yes, you are. Anyway, so when she went to take her foot away from the table, he grabbed her leg and put it back. And I was like, oh my God.
Ooh.
High-fiving. This is the best. Okay, that's one.
Sexy. That's
so sexy. Nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing, but it's something. Right?
Yeah.
And then another one, which I think is really good. So you can either take it off or bring it with you. But you take your underwear off in the bathroom or you bring it with you like an extra pair and then you just like put it in their pocket at like the restaurant or
clean or dirty?
Well, clean.
Oh, I thought you want them to like smell you.
I mean, you could and send them a text and say smell my underwear at dinner, and that might be a little weird. But
What else are you saying? What are you else going to say? Look in your pocket. My clean purple hanky pankies are there.
Or you just slide something into their pocket, and then they're wondering, what are you sliding? You don't
they
say
fall
anything.
on the floor, someone would trip on
you
them.
put them into their pocket, right? And all of a sudden, and that's kind of like a little thing. Another really, if you want to be like super, this is like really going for it and like doing it. But like, let's say your husband's at the office, you could like legitimately go in like a jacket and shut the door and like
that's a little tip though. That's
love that. I
think
your dad.
Your dad
do
that
right next to.
There are people you can do it. I can tell you, working in advertising, it was definitely happening.
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God. Everyone was having sex with
media
everybody.
agencies?
In the agencies.
Everyone
for
walking
sure.
around in trench coats.
Oh, and the best is when you hear people on the phones. Like I would walk by one person's office and I could hear them talking, and then walk by somebody else, and I was like,
they're talking.
Are
they're talking.
Yeah, they're not talking.
They're married. Yeah. But so those are like just fun little things, right? So those are like on this side of the scale, right? That are like extras and that are really fun. So you had your 10 spot here.
Yeah, Kristen loves a good kinky night out.
Like, this is like so good. So she, again, is on this side of the scale, but even bringing it down a tiny little bit and just like sending a text message or saying like, even if you're on FaceTime and you just do like a little like tilt to the phone, right? It's like, right? You know, my husband's always like, this is a work phone. I'm like, nobody is following you. Like
what exactly? So
right?
Just like
I'm
so
not
irrational, but it's like,
with my face, babe. It's just
with
a tilt to
my face.
the
You think
phone.
this is amateur hour? It's
Right?
lips
Like,
down.
oh my God, you know, or like, you know, there's so many like
I'm the lips
fun.
down queen.
Oh my God. It's fun. He's fun because he's, you know, I'm a lot more of an extrovert, and it's like fun to like make him uncomfortable. But, you know, there's so many different ways that you can do it. So as I said, even like a smaller, like on this end of the scale is the person who's sitting over here at night when you guys are watching TV, you're sitting over there, and go sit on the couch with them.
Yeah.
Right.
Go sit on the same couch.
Go sit on the same couch.
Start small, depending on where you're at. You don't have to start
If you're in the
big.
car and they're driving, put your hand on their leg when they drive. Right? Like small. It doesn't have to be me going to their office and wearing a trench coat. Like that's not going to be the majority of people.
It's work. It's just like literally thinking about your relationship. It's like, I feel like you just get, you know, you just go when you go when you go.
You get all hyped up for it.
Yeah.
Like this Sunday at 2:00, like it's a plan. It's like, really, we're planning now. That's how we are like activating our sex life. Guess what? You're thinking about it all weekend long. Sunday at 2:00, it's like, ooh, 1:59.
Let's do it.
Like it's exciting, you know, it's stimulating.
It's just making that little effort.
It's making the effort.
Creative. It's finding what works for you, I think, is the big takeaway, right?
Yeah.
Like that works for you. It's noticing those feelings that make you feel good, right? And understanding them so that you can show your partner that that's what you want. That's what you want for yourself. And that's what would make you happy. Right.
And going back to the games too, there's this other game, which is really cool, where it's like there are questions that you ask them, like, and so some of them are just like nice, some of them are medium, and some of them are really spicy. Like, what sexual is your favorite sexual position? What's your this? What's your that? You know? And again, it can start like very neutral, and then you can play it up nice and hot, right? And then it gets people relaxed.
It gets people talking.
It gets them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think here's the big thing too, is when you're out with your partner or even your friends, I try not to talk about my children.
Yes.
I'm like, guys, if I hear you talking about your sleep schedule, we're done here.
Right.
Like, this is not for dinner. Like, to my husband, it's like we're not talking about the kids. And that's what I actually loved what Kristen was saying, where it's like, you know, we'll listen to the same podcast, or we'll read the same book, or we'll go see a movie. And then it's like, we have things to talk about that are not just our children.
Right.
And I think that is like number one, if you are a parent, is to avoid that.
Yeah.
Because that's going to kill the mood too.
I agree.
How are we for time, Rye? We good? Well, I feel like
thanks for
I learned a
having
lot.
me.
This was amazing. I feel like I got to go send some text messages.
Yeah, and I want to ask you all dirty questions about sex positions after this.
Okay. Amazing.
Okay, thanks,
guys.
Laira.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.